An Apache clan captured him, not knowing he was the hunter sent to destroy them. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the rocky plains of the desert. Dust swirled in the wind, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and old forgotten things. Cole Redstone Garrett rode alone, his silhouette cutting through the orange haze as his boots pressed the stirrups into the horse's side. His face was weathered, hardened by years of hunting across the galaxy. His eyes, dark and sharp, were fixed ahead, scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. Cole wasn't the kind of man to talk much. He didn't need to. His reputation spoke for him. Bounty hunters didn't need friends, only enemies. And Cole had plenty. He had been hired for this mission, to find and eliminate a dangerous group of outlaws. They weren't just any criminals. They were a band of survivors, calling themselves the Apaches. Their origin was a mystery, and their methods were even more so. But there was one thing everyone knew. They were ruthless. The mission had seemed simple enough. Find the Apache clan, capture or kill their leader, and bring them down. It wasn't the first time Cole had hunted dangerous men and women across the galaxy, but this time felt different. There was something about the Apaches that piqued his curiosity. Maybe it was the fact that no one had been able to touch them. Or perhaps it was the stories. Rumors of strange powers and unexplainable tech that the clan wielded like they'd lived with it for centuries. But none of that mattered to Cole. He had his job. Find them. Take them out. Get paid. That's how it always worked. His horse's hooves clattered over the rocky terrain as he reached the edge of a canyon, the sun dipping behind the hills. Cole's hand went to his rifle, but something made him stop. He squinted into the distance, feeling a chill run down his spine. It was quiet. Too quiet. The wind had died, and the land stretched out in an unnatural stillness. He knew better than to ignore his instincts. He turned his horse to head back, but it was too late. The sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echoed from the shadows. Before Cole could even reach for his weapon, strong hands grabbed him from behind, pulling him off his saddle. He hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of him. The metallic taste of blood filled his mouth as he struggled to breathe. A rough voice growled from above him. "Hold him!" Cole's hands were quickly bound, and he could feel the coldness of the restraints around his wrists. His eyes darted around, searching for a way out. There were at least 4 figures standing around him, their faces hidden behind masks made of dark, weathered metal. Their movements were swift and practiced, like they had done this 100 times before. Apache, Cole muttered under his breath, his heart sinking. He had walked right into their trap. The men hauled him to his feet, dragging him through the canyon toward their camp. Cole knew better than to fight back. Not yet. He needed to gather information, see what he was up against. The Apaches were notorious for their ambushes, and he wasn't about to give them the satisfaction of seeing him struggle. They arrived at a hidden camp nestled deep within the canyon, surrounded by sharp rocks and the eerie glow of strange lights. The fire crackled in the center of the camp, and the air smelled of cooking meat and something metallic, almost alien. His eyes caught sight of the weapons they wielded. Knives, swords, and advanced energy rifles, all strangely intertwined with the technology they had scavenged over the years. Cole was shoved into a small, dark cell, the cold stone walls pressing in on him. The door clanged shut behind him, leaving him in near-total darkness. His breathing slowed, and his mind raced. How had they known he was coming? He had been careful. No one should have seen him. For hours, he sat there, weighing his options. Escape was impossible for now, but he needed to stay alert. Every sound outside his cell, every creak, every movement could be a clue. The Apache clan didn't operate like other outlaws. They were smarter, more resourceful. They didn't just raid settlements. They had a purpose, a mission. But what was it? Cole leaned back against the cold stone wall and closed his eyes. He needed to stay focused. If he was going to survive, he couldn't let the Apaches get the best of him. He had to learn everything he could about them. Their leader, their motives, their technology. The hunter had become the hunted, and he needed to turn the tables fast. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway, sharp and measured. Cole's senses sharpened. The door to his cell creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. He couldn't make out their features in the dim light, but he could feel their presence, powerful, almost commanding. "So you're the one they sent to kill us," the voice said, soft but firm. It was a woman's voice. His pulse quickened, but he kept his composure. "I'm no killer," he replied, his voice low and steady. "I'm just here to do a job." The woman laughed softly, the sound almost like a whisper. "A job?" she repeated, her voice laced with sarcasm. "What if the job is wrong? What if you're being played? Cole didn't respond. He wasn't here to play games, but something about the woman's words made him pause. What if she was right? What if there was more to this than just a simple bounty? The woman stepped closer, her shadow falling across him. "My name is Raven Moon," she said, her tone unwavering. "And you are in my camp now. You've made a mistake coming here, but maybe you're the one who's going to fix it." Cole's mind raced as Raven Moon's words echoed in his ears. There was more to this Apache clan than he had anticipated, and now, trapped in their midst, he was going to have to find out just what that was. But one thing was certain. His mission wasn't over. It had just begun. Cole woke to the sound of footsteps echoing down the hall, sharp and deliberate. He hadn't slept much in the dark, damp cell. The cold stone walls pressed in on him, and the stale air seemed to thicken by the hour. His mind kept racing, replaying the events of the night over and over again. The Apache clan had captured him without hesitation. He had underestimated them. A key turned in the lock, and the door to his cell creaked open. Cole didn't move, keeping his back pressed against the cold wall. Two figures stepped inside, both tall, cloaked in heavy fabrics that flowed like shadows in the dim light. One of them was Raven Moon, the woman who had spoken to him last night. The other, a broad-shouldered man with a thick beard, stood silently behind her. His face was hidden under a wide-brimmed hat, but Cole could feel the weight of his gaze. "On your feet," Raven Moon ordered softly. Cole stood slowly, his muscles stiff from being confined for so long. He didn't make a move to resist. He had learned long ago that fighting was useless when the odds were stacked against him. And right now he didn't know what kind of odds he was dealing with. "You have questions," Raven Moon said, her voice low but with an edge to it. She crossed her arms, studying him. "I can see it in your eyes." Cole didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her. Raven Moon had an air of command about her, one that seemed to seep into every fiber of her being. She wasn't just the leader of the clan, she embodied it. "What do you want with me?" Cole finally asked, his voice a steady growl. Raven Moon smiled slightly, though there was no warmth in it. "What do I want? I want answers. I want to know who sent you, and I want to know why you're here." Cole's mind raced, but he kept his face neutral. His heart had begun to beat faster. There was something unsettling about Raven Moon, something beyond her leadership. She wasn't just a powerful woman. She was calculating, perceptive. He could feel that she wasn't just questioning him to find out about his mission. There was more at play here than met the eye. "The people who sent me, they want you gone," Cole said cautiously, weighing his words. He had no idea if he was telling the truth or just guessing. All he knew was that he had been hired to track down and destroy the Apache clan, no questions asked. The corporation who had hired him didn't care about the details. They never did. Raven Moon tilted her head slightly, considering his words. "Gone," she repeated, her tone dry. "That's all? You don't even know why?" Cole remained silent. He wasn't going to offer more than he had to. The bearded man behind Raven Moon shifted, taking a step forward. He was taller than Cole, built like a mountain, with rough hands that seemed capable of crushing rock. He had the look of a soldier, sharp eyes, a no-nonsense expression, and a body hardened by years of conflict. "Do you think you're the only one here with a mission?" he asked, his voice gravelly. Cole didn't respond. The man wasn't asking for an answer. Raven Moon raised a hand, silencing the man. "Let him speak," she said. Then she turned back to Cole. "Do you think we're just outlaws, scavengers looking for trouble? Is that what you've been told?" Cole's jaw tightened. He had heard the rumors, the stories of the Apache clan's raids on distant colonies, but something about the way Raven Moon spoke made him pause. The arrogance in her voice wasn't the arrogance of a mere criminal. There was something else, something far deeper. "You're more than that, aren't you?" Cole said slowly, his words more of a statement than a question. Raven Moon smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We've fought battles you can't even imagine, and we'll keep fighting." Until the very end. The bearded man stepped closer to Cole, his gaze hardening. "You'll learn more soon enough," he said, his voice low. "But if you think we'll let you walk out of here, think again. You're either with us or against us, and I don't take kindly to people who choose the latter." Cole didn't flinch. "I'm not choosing anything yet," he said evenly. "But you should know this. I'm not your enemy. Not yet." "Not yet?" she repeated. "What exactly do you mean by that?" The silence that followed was thick, heavy with unspoken tension. Cole held her gaze, feeling the weight of her stare as if it could crush him, but he didn't back down. He couldn't. He didn't know what the Apache clan's true intentions were, but he was determined to find out. And if they were hiding something more than just outlaws, then he needed to uncover it. "You don't even know who you're dealing with," Raven Moon said, her tone colder now. "The people who sent you are the real enemy. They'll stop at nothing to crush us, to destroy everything we've fought for." There was a depth to Raven Moon's anger that he hadn't expected. It wasn't just about survival. It was about something bigger. She wasn't fighting for power, not in the way most leaders did. She was fighting for something more. "I don't work for them anymore," Cole said, his voice quieter than before. "I don't even know if I want to anymore." Raven Moon studied him for a moment, her eyes calculating. "Then you'll help us, and in return we'll help you." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Help me? How?" Raven Moon turned to the bearded man. "Bring him to the council," she ordered. "Let him see what we're really fighting for." The man nodded and grabbed Cole by the arm, pulling him forward. Cole resisted for a moment, but it was pointless. He had no choice but to go with them. They walked through the camp, past tents made of strange weathered materials, their designs unlike anything Cole had ever seen. There were people everywhere, men and women, all with hardened faces, all wearing weapons of various kinds. The Apache clan wasn't just a group of outlaws. They were a well-organized, formidable force, one that had survived against all odds. Finally, they arrived at a large tent, its entrance guarded by 2 soldiers. Inside, a circle of older figures sat at a table, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a single lamp. These were the leaders of the Apache clan, the council. Raven Moon stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. "This is the man who was sent to destroy us," she said, motioning to Cole. "And now he's going to help us." Cole met the eyes of each council member, trying to gauge what kind of people they were. They weren't what he had expected. They were not bloodthirsty criminals. They were survivors, warriors, and maybe, just maybe, they were right about the real enemy. But before he could speak, Raven Moon turned back to him. "Now you'll see why we fight." And for the first time since his capture, Cole felt a chill of uncertainty. He had no idea what he had stepped into, but he knew this much. Everything was about to change. The council tent was filled with the murmur of voices, and the air felt thick with anticipation. Cole stood near the entrance, his back stiff, as Raven Moon moved to the center of the circle of council members. The older leaders looked at him with suspicion and curiosity. This wasn't just any meeting, it was a turning point, one that could change everything. Raven Moon motioned for Cole to step forward. "This is the hunter sent to destroy us," she announced, her voice steady but tinged with an edge of defiance. "And now, he's going to see what we really fight for." His mind was still a whirlwind of questions, none of which had answers yet. The strange power the Apache clan possessed, their survival against overwhelming odds. It all seemed so much more complicated than he had ever been told. One of the elders, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and a face lined with the history of battle, spoke up. "You claim to be a man of honor," she said, her voice sharp. "But we do not trust outsiders, not after everything we've been through." Cole nodded, understanding the suspicion. He wasn't a fool. He knew that they would never simply accept him, but Raven Moon's words echoed in his mind. "We're fighting the same enemy," she had said. Was that true, or was she just trying to manipulate him? "I'm not here to deceive you," Cole said, keeping his voice calm. "I don't know why I was sent to kill your clan, but I need answers. I need to know what's really going on." Raven Moon gestured to one of the younger men at the table. He stood up and walked toward Cole, his eyes filled with determination. "I'll show you," he said. "You deserve to know the truth." The man led Cole to a far corner of the tent where a map of the galaxy was spread across a table. Several points on the map were marked with red symbols, indicating locations of battles, abandoned outposts, and lost colonies.
The man placed his finger on one of the marks. "This is where we came from."
"This is the beginning of the Apache clan." Cole leaned closer, studying the map. "This is where you all started." Raven Moon joined them, her voice low. "Yes, we weren't always like this. We were once a peaceful people. But the corporations found us, and they decided we had something they wanted." The man pointed to a second, larger red mark on the map. "This is where it all changed. The corporations came to take what was ours. They destroyed our homes, wiped out our people, and forced us into hiding. We had no choice but to fight back." Cole's mind raced. He had heard stories of corporate greed, but this was something entirely different. The corporations were ruthless, yes, but could they have really done this? Destroyed entire cultures just for profit? And you fought back with this? Cole asked, his eyes narrowing as he gestured to the strange, glowing technology scattered across the map. Ravenmoon nodded. We didn't start out with this power. It was the result of years of survival. We learned, adapted, scavenged what we could. What the corporations didn't know was that the land we called home held more than just resources. It held secrets. The words hung in the air, and for the first time, Cole felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something ancient about the Apache clan. Something not just about their will to survive, but the very land they had been forced to protect. Ravenmoon continued. We discovered technology left behind by an ancient civilization. It wasn't just weapons. It was something more. A force that we could harness. Something that gave us the power to fight the corporations. But at a cost. Cole leaned in, his curiosity piqued. What cost? The man who had first shown Cole the map stepped forward. The technology doesn't come without a price. It alters us. Changes who we are. But we had no choice. We had to use it to survive. Cole's head spun as he took in the gravity of what was being said. The Apache clan wasn't just a group of outlaws or survivors. There was something else entirely. They had tapped into ancient alien technology, and in doing so had become something more than human. Ravenmoon's voice softened. The corporations wanted to control this power. They wanted it for themselves, so they came after us, trying to take everything we had. But we fought back. We're not just defending our homes. We're fighting to protect something much bigger. The weight of her words hit Cole like a punch. The Apache clan's fight wasn't just about survival. They were protecting something that could change the course of the galaxy. And the people who sent him, they weren't the good guys. They were the ones trying to control that power for their own gain. A sense of understanding began to form in Cole's mind. He had been hunting the wrong people. His mission, the one he had been hired for, had been built on lies. Ravenmoon took a step closer to him, her eyes intense. You were sent to kill us, Cole Garrett. But now you know the truth. What will you do with it? Cole's thoughts raced as he stood there, caught in the middle of a war he didn't understand. But one thing was clear. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He had become part of something much larger than himself. The room fell silent as Cole turned to face the council. He could see the resolve in their eyes. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to protect a future. A future where the corporations didn't control everything. I'm not your enemy, Cole said, his voice steady. I was wrong. I'll help you. Ravenmoon's gaze softened, though it was still filled with a cautious determination. Then you will stand with us, she said. But know this, it won't be easy. The battle ahead is unlike anything you've faced before. He had no illusions about the path ahead. The Apache clan wasn't just a group of outlaws. They were a resistance, fighting for something bigger than themselves. And now Cole Garrett was part of that fight. As Ravenmoon turned to address the council, Cole stepped back, his thoughts heavy with the knowledge he had just gained. There was no going back now. The corporations had made a mistake when they sent him to destroy the Apache clan. But in that mistake, they had created an ally, and a force that they would soon come to regret. The day had come. The Apache clan was readying for battle, their warriors preparing for the largest confrontation they had ever faced. Cole stood near the edge of their camp, watching as the members of the clan sharpened their weapons, readied their gear, and spoke in low voices about what lay ahead. The atmosphere was tense, but there was something else too, a quiet resolve. These people weren't just fighting to survive anymore, they were fighting for their freedom. Ravenmoon approached him, as the sun began to sink behind the distant mountains. The shadows of the rocky cliffs stretched long across the camp, and the glow of campfires flickered like stars. She was dressed for battle now, her dark cloak replaced by armored clothing, her face set in a determined expression. She had changed since he first met her. The weight of leadership had taken its toll, but it had also made her stronger. Are you ready? She asked, her voice low but steady. Cole glanced around, taking in the faces of the warriors who would fight alongside him. He wasn't just a bounty hunter anymore. He was part of this, whether he liked it or not. He had seen what they were fighting for, what was at stake, and he couldn't turn his back on them now. I've never been more ready, Cole said, his voice carrying the edge of determination he hadn't felt in years. The hunter had become the protector. Ravenmoon gave a slight nod, her eyes scanning the camp one last time before turning back to him. We're going to need you out there. You know how to fight, how to think on your feet. This isn't just about weapons, it's about strategy. We've been on the defensive long enough. Cole's gaze hardened. You'll get everything I've got. The corporations won't know what hit them. Ravenmoon's lips tightened, a flicker of something dark passing through her eyes. They think we're nothing more than outlaws. They think they can wipe us out without consequence. But they've underestimated us. And they've underestimated you. The words hung in the air as Cole turned his attention back to the horizon. The corporate forces were coming. They would arrive at dawn, a massive force of mercenaries and heavily armed soldiers, all under the command of the corporations. They had no idea what they were walking into. The clan's technology, the ancient force they had uncovered, was unlike anything the corporate soldiers had seen before. Ravenmoon's words echoed in Cole's mind. It alters us. Changes who we are. He had seen it for himself. The Apache warriors had been enhanced by the technology they had learned to wield. Their strength, speed, and endurance were beyond human limits. And with Cole now standing alongside them, the balance of power had shifted. The night passed slowly, filled with the sound of preparations and the occasional whisper of strategy. Cole sat near the campfire, his hand resting on his weapon, eyes fixed on the flickering flames. He was no longer just a man with a job. He was a part of this fight. He had chosen a side, and there was no going back. Dawn broke, painting the sky with streaks of red and orange. The first light of the morning revealed the corporate forces on the horizon, their machines moving slowly but surely toward the Apache camp. The air was heavy with the scent of dust and the tension of the impending battle. Ravenmoon stood at the front of the camp, her warriors gathered behind her, waiting for her command. Cole walked up to her, his boots crunching on the dry earth. "What's the plan?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with the weight of the moment. Ravenmoon turned to him, her expression calm but fierce. "We're going to hit them where they least expect it. We'll use the terrain to our advantage, and we'll strike fast. The corporations think they can overpower us. They think their technology will win the day. We'll show them just how wrong they are." She looked at him for a moment longer, then gave a small nod. "Follow my lead." Cole nodded in return, feeling the rush of adrenaline course through him. He had trained for moments like this, moments when everything hung in the balance and every decision could mean life or death. But there was something different about this fight. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about protecting something far bigger than himself. As the corporate forces closed in, the Apache warriors moved into position, their movements precise and silent. The battle began with a thundering sound of gunfire, and the sky lit up with the flashes of weapons. The Apache clan fought with a ferocity and speed that the mercenaries couldn't match. Their enhanced strength and the ancient technology they wielded made them a formidable force. Cole moved through the battlefield with a calm focus, his rifle raised as he picked off enemies with deadly precision. He had fought in many battles, but this was different. This was for survival, for freedom, and for a future that didn't belong to the corporations. The battle raged on, the sounds of gunfire and explosions filling the air. The Apache warriors were relentless, charging forward with a fury that seemed unstoppable. But the corporate forces weren't giving up easily. They fought back with everything they had, but the Apache warriors were faster, stronger, and more prepared. At the center of the battle, Ravenmoon was a force of nature. Her sword gleamed in the sunlight as she cut down enemies with a skill and speed that seemed almost inhuman. She moved like a shadow, striking quickly and disappearing before her enemies even knew it had hit them. Cole watched her for a moment, amazed at the power she wielded. This wasn't just the leader of a clan. This was someone who had become something more. As the battle reached its peak, the corporate forces began to falter. They were no match for the Apache warriors, and the tide of the fight was turning in the clan's favor. Cole fought his way through the chaos, his focus sharp, his movements quick. He was no longer just a hunter. He was part of something much bigger, and he wasn't about to let it fall. Finally, after what felt like hours, the corporate forces began to retreat. The Apache warriors had won. The land was theirs, and the corporations had been sent packing. Ravenmoon stood at the center of the battlefield, her chest rising and falling with each breath. She looked at Cole, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "You did well," she said, her voice filled with respect. Cole nodded, his heart still pounding in his chest. "We did well. You led them well." Ravenmoon's smile faded as she looked out over the battlefield, her expression softening. "This isn't over, but it's a victory. And, for the first time in a long time, it feels like we might have a chance." Cole stood next to her, feeling the weight of the moment. They had won this battle, but there were more to come. The fight wasn't over. But for the first time, He believed they could win. He looked out across the battlefield, his mind clear, his heart steady. He had come here as a hunter, sent to destroy, but now he was something more, a protector. And for the Apache clan, that was enough.